Hey Base Campers, Ashley here, and I am so excited to be helping to complete this unit talking about SHEMA. And you know what? I think we've been throwing a lot at you. God is asking a lot of us. We know that loving God with all of our hearts means wanting God inwardly. And we know that loving God with all of our souls means loving God physically or with our actions. And we know that loving God with all of our strength means loving God with everything available to us. We're talking about putting God first. Why is it so important to put God first? Well, usually we don't put important things in second or third or last place. For example, have you ever seen a t-shirt that says, third favorite daughter? No. What about a mug that says, second best Christmas? Of course not. We put important things first. And the whole idea of SHEMA is putting God first. And you know what's cool? The Israelites used the SHEMA prayer to remind them to put God first. They actually prayed the SHEMA every morning and every evening. And you know, that got me thinking, what do we think about when we first wake up in the morning? Maybe your stomach is grumbling and you think, what's for breakfast? Or maybe you're already planning out your next Avengers or Justice League storyline. Or maybe if you're older and have a phone or a tablet, you're grabbing that to check what's going on with your friends. And you know what? Nothing's wrong with any of that. But we know with SHEMA that we want to put God first. So what would it look like if we woke up in the morning and intentionally put Him first? And Jesus talks about this concept of putting God first through stories in the Bible. There's one story He talks about in Matthew 19 about a young man who was very wealthy. He had a lot of stuff. And you know what? This guy did everything right. But he went to Jesus and he said, Jesus, how can I make sure that I spend forever with God after I die? And Jesus said, you have to sell everything you own and give the money to the poor. And you know what? This young man didn't like that answer and he walked away. And Jesus here, He's not saying that having cool things or having money is necessarily bad, but you know what? He knew this young man's heart and He knew where the young man's focus was. And so He said, you've got to put that stuff to the side to put God first. And Jesus tells another story in the Bible about a jewelry collector. And this jewelry collector is looking for the perfect pearl. And he looks everywhere. And when he finally finds it, you know what he does? He sells everything he owns, uses the money to buy that pearl because he recognized the value and the importance of the pearl. And in the same way, we can recognize the value and the importance of God in our relationship with Him. Now, let's remember the first guy, the wealthy young man, and our second guy, the jewelry collector. Who do we think put God first? The jewelry collector, of course. You know, this reminds me of a story about a young girl actually from right here in Minnesota. She was on vacation in Sweden, which is another country super far away, and she was swimming in a lake. And she came across something on the bottom of the lake that felt like metal. She grabbed a hold of it and she pulled it up. She held it over her head and she said, Dad, look what I've discovered. And when they looked at it, they realized that it was a sword that was over 1,000 years old. That is an old sword. This sword was so old that it could have been used by the Vikings. But not the football team, the Vikings, like the real Vikings. How cool is that? Now, did this little girl take that special sword and go stick it in her car or hide it somewhere? Of course not. She recognized the value and the importance of the sword. And she was interviewed by all kinds of TV stations all over the world. In the same way, each morning, we can put God first by recognizing the value in Him and the importance of our relationship with Him. And it's just like that discovery when she pulled out the sword. Each day, we can discover the goodness and the importance of God and what He can bring to our life. And you know what's so cool is that if we put God first, man, that's going to show up all throughout our day. It's going to impact how we behave in our home with our family. It's going to impact how we engage with our teachers at school or with online learning. It's going to impact how we play with our friends and respond to them. Putting God first will impact our entire day, but we just have to recognize the value in Him and the importance of our relationship with Him. And so I want to encourage you, base campers, all throughout this week to think about when we first wake up in the morning, God, help me to put you first. Thanks for joining us, base campers. We're excited to hang out with you next week.